The last thing I told my father was, "My son will grow up without knowing your name." 3 weeks later, a nurse called and asked if I wanted to reach the hospital before they took him into emergency surgery. I almost hung up. For 25 years, I had carried the same version of my father. He drank too much. He scared my mother. Then he disappeared when I was 9. So when my son Owen was born, I decided the cycle would end with me. My father, Richard, found out about Owen through my aunt. He sent me a short message. "I heard you have a son. I would like to meet him when you are ready." I read it while Owen slept on my chest. He was 6 days old. His hand was wrapped around my finger, and all I could think about was being 9 years old, watching every car that slowed near our house. My father never came then. I saw no reason to let him come now. I replied, "You had a son. You left him. You do not get another chance through mine." He did not argue. That should have made the whole thing easier. Instead, his next message stayed in my head. "I understand. Please ask the doctor to listen carefully to Owen's heart. There is something in my family history you need to know." I thought it was a way to keep me talking. I blocked his number. Life with Owen was exhausting, but peaceful. My wife Lena and I measured bottles, washed tiny clothes, and took turns sleeping. Our home felt stable. Then a small wooden train arrived in the mail. There was no letter, only a card with Owen's name. The wheels were smooth, and the blue paint matched the train I had owned as a child. I threw it into a closet. Lena asked why I did not throw it away. I said I had not decided yet. But that was not what bothered me most. Under the train was a folded piece of paper with the name of a cardiac condition and a clinic number. My father had written, "Mention this at Owen's next checkup." Our pediatrician said family medical history mattered. She added a note to Owen's file and arranged a basic screening. Owen was fine. That result made me angrier, not calmer. It felt like my father had used fear to force his way into our home. A week later, I unblocked him and called. "Do not send anything else," I said. "Do not contact my wife. Do not come near my son." His voice sounded older than I remembered. "Was his screening clear?" he asked. I told him that was none of his business. He paused, then said, "All right, I will stay away." I should have ended the call there. Instead, I gave him the sentence I had been carrying since childhood. "My son will grow up without knowing your name." He said, "I understand." Then the line went quiet. 3 weeks later, the hospital called. Richard had collapsed at work with a tear in the large artery near his heart. He needed surgery at once. My number was listed as his emergency contact. I told the nurse we had no relationship. She said, "I understand. He is still asking for you." My certainty started to crack. Why had a man who left me years ago kept my number close enough for a hospital to find it? Lena told me to go for myself, not for him. When I reached the hospital, he had already been taken into surgery. A nurse handed me a clear bag containing his wallet, keys, phone, and a thick brown envelope. My name was written across the front. Inside were 23 birthday cards. Several had been returned by the mail service. Others had old addresses crossed out. There were money orders made out to my mother, court papers requesting supervised visits, and a photograph of me sitting on his shoulders. The papers did not erase what he had done, but they showed me that the story I had carried was missing entire years. The first court request had been filed 14 months after he left. More followed. Each included records from an alcohol treatment program and letters from an employer. One report said he had completed 7 supervised visits with me. I stared at that line for several minutes. Then I remembered a room with plastic chairs, a box of broken crayons, and a man who always brought cheese sandwiches because I hated peanut butter. I had buried those visits so deeply that they felt like scenes from someone else's childhood. The visits stopped when my mother moved us to another state. I called my aunt. She said my mother had feared Richard would fall back into drinking. She did not want him moving in and out of my life. When she got a job across the country, she left without giving him the new address. My aunt had argued with her about it for years, but the hardest part was still coming. My aunt said Richard found us again when I was 16. By then, my mother was dealing with serious health problems. She told him I was doing well, and that hearing from him would only damage me. He backed away. When I was 22, he finally contacted me directly. I met him once at a coffee shop. I remember him trying to speak, and I remember cutting him off before he could finish. He had brought the brown envelope that day. I never noticed it under his chair. My father survived the surgery. 2 days later, I sat beside his bed while machines clicked around us. He looked at the envelope in my hands and closed his eyes. "Why didn't you show me?" I asked. He said my mother had been sick by the time he found me. He knew I loved her. He did not want to give me documents that might turn my final years with her into anger and questions. "So you let me hate you?" I asked. He looked toward the window. "I gave you plenty of reasons before she left," he said. I kept thinking there would be a better time to explain. Then every year made it harder. There was no perfect speech. He did not blame everything on my mother. He admitted the drinking, the shouting, the broken kitchen door, and the months when he could not care for a child. He also said he had not taken a drink in 24 years. That did not give me my childhood back. It did change the man sitting in front of me. There was one more detail I needed to face. The heart condition he had warned me about was the same condition that had nearly killed him. His father and older sister had both had it. He had not sent the note to frighten me. He had sent it because Owen might need screening as he got older. I went into the hallway and cried so hard I had to sit on the floor. I felt angry at my father for failing me, angry at my mother for hiding part of the story, angry at myself for using my son as the final weapon in an argument that began before Owen was born. But I was not ready to act as if none of it had happened. When Richard left the hospital, I set rules. No surprise visits, no private contact with Owen, no disappearing for months and returning with excuses. We would start with short meetings and I would decide whether they continued. He accepted every rule. The first meeting happened in a rehabilitation center garden. Owen was 4 months old. Richard sat in a wheelchair with a pillow pressed against his chest. His hands shook when Lena placed Owen in his arms. He did not call himself Grandpa. He did not make a speech. He just looked at Owen and said, "You have your father's eyebrows." I had expected that moment to fix something or break something. It did neither. It was simply a beginning. Over the next year, Richard showed up. He came to scheduled lunches and sent medical updates without demanding attention. When Owen took his first steps, Richard watched the video twice without asking why he had not been there. I also read every card in that envelope. Some were awkward. Some were only 2 sentences. None could replace the years we lost. But together they showed a man who had failed badly, worked to change, and then let shame and fear keep him silent for far too long. My mother was not turned into a villain either. She protected me when protection was needed. Later, she kept making that choice after the danger had changed. Both things can exist in the same family. Owen is 3 now. He calls my father Grandpa Rich. Their relationship is careful, warm, and still supervised by the boundaries Lena and I set. I do not know what our family would look like if that hospital had never called. I only know that I almost made a permanent decision using half a story. I cannot give my father back the years we lost, but I stopped letting someone else's silence decide how many more we would lose.